Okay, so welcome everyone. Just as a little introduction, like I said, my name is Zara. I'm the co-president of Pre-Medical Society for this term. What we have in store for you today is just a CASPer information session. It's going to entail a PowerPoint that talks all about the CASPer, everything you need to know, as well as a Q&A that you guys will have following that PowerPoint if ever you have any additional questions. Then we have some of our experts from the fourth quartile that previously wrote the CASPer and are here to share their knowledge with you all. And we also have some do-it-yourself kind of little prompts that we will give you guys once you go into groups so that you guys can discuss in a group and then continue kind of regroup back and we can all discuss it as a whole group together and hear some of our experts input on these topics. And finally, we're going to have a final Q&A. If you guys have any additional questions, don't hesitate to ask. We're all here to help and learn. And for those of you who might be writing it on Thursday or maybe wrote it yesterday, actually, I hope you guys do great. And best of luck to all of those who will be writing it in the future. So without further ado, we're going to start off with Pre-Medical Society, and we have Yada.
Hi, everyone. My name is Yara, and I'm the second co-president for Pre-Med Society this year, along with Zahrat. And our mission is to kind of bridge the gap between the pre-medical experience and studies in medical school. So we can help you with everything related to the application process, MCAT, building like professional skills, communication, volunteering, and all of those beautiful requirements that you'll need for medical school. We know that the application process and being a pre-med is very stressful. We're going through it ourselves, so we just want to help you guys. We want to ease a little bit on the stress. We have great academic coordinators that can answer any academic questions that you have. And with that, I'll say to make sure to follow our Instagram and our socials, because that's where we're putting meet the team posts, and that's where you'll know who our academic coordinators are, their office hours and all of that. You can also email us at premedsociety@uwindsor.com, and our website is also very helpful. And then we also have some upcoming events. So everyone likes this one. It's the mock interviews one. It's going to happen late January, where you'll be able to practice your interview skills. We'll bring in some doctors. We'll bring in some medical students to help you, to guide you through the interview process. And then in April, we have our MCAT AMA to help you with everything related to MCAT. So that's us. We're the Pre-Medical Society. Make sure to follow us. And if you're a pre-med who is going through a lot right now and it's very stressful, you can reach out to us and we can help you.
Hello, my name is Ahmad Rakil, and I'm one of the co-presidents for the Pre-Dental Society this year, alongside Salma. If you have a passion for the dental field or even just like a general interest, we encourage you to join our club so we can incorporate you into our mission to provide pre-dental students with information and resources to help you become a successful dental school applicant. And then we also thought it would be important to highlight a few of our club's main goals to kind of give everyone an idea of our club's ideals as a whole. So one of our main goals is to provide members with professional development opportunities, which we do through application-related presentations, such as this CASPer event we're hosting right now. And we'd also like to educate members about the dental profession, which we do through our Instagram dental student takeovers, which happen bi-weekly. And we actually have one coming up this October 21st with a student from the University of Toronto. And we're also going to be starting to host dental information school sessions online starting next semester. So you can ask any dental school application or just any dental related question directly to dental school representatives. And then we also believe that it's important to be involved with the community and give back to the community, which is why the PreDental Society is partnering with a nonprofit organization this semester. We're going to be holding a can drive this month, and we're going to be hosting a bake sale next month. And all of our proceeds will be used to create health packages that will donate to our nonprofit organization in December. So if you need any more information about the club or any of our events, or even if you're just interested in joining, you can contact us through any of our socials listed below.
So hi guys, I'm Harvey. I'm the co-president of this year's Pre-Pharmacy Society alongside Deep and Sharma. So for the Pre-Pharm Society, our mission is to connect students with resources that they need to successfully matriculate into pharmacy schools and succeed in the field of pharmacy. So we have held events with U of T so far to help bridge the gap between resources and like to connect students with what resources they need to get admitted into pharmacy school. And we also post about different career opportunities in the pharmacy field. So we're really trying to bridge the gap between pre-pharm and the pharmacy field. So upcoming events, we have a fundraiser partnered with the Center of Addictions and Mental Health. And the top prize is AirPods. So I know everyone likes AirPods. So if you want to win AirPods, feel free to join. It's $3 a ticket and $10 for 5 tickets. And we also have a U of T student takeover, which is at the end of October. And below we have our links to our Instagram, our email, and we also have a QR code if you're interested in signing up as a general member. And there's also a QR code to the right, which is for our AirPods event if you want to enter to win AirPods.
Oops, sorry, I was muted. But so we have our collaborators. So these are some of the faces that you'll be seeing throughout the presentation. So Salma, Harjo, Harvey, myself, Yara, Izzy, and Emmanuel. So what we're here for. So we're here for what is CASPer. So CASPer is a situational judgment test. So some of you may think it's pointless or don't know what exactly it is, but it helps admissions committees get a better picture of you outside the classroom. We know our GPAs there, our essays, our extracurriculars, but this sort of helps them get a better picture of you. Some people say it evaluates your soft skills. So these are 10 core competencies that CASPer identifies that they look for in an ideal applicant. So collaboration, communication, empathy, etc. Some of these are really intuitive, but some of them like resilience, professionalism, and motivation are on the fence. So I recommend you guys Google this, look at exactly what they're looking for, because there's always two cases, such as motivation, being able to motivate yourself, but also being able to inspire and motivate others. That's a key aspect that a lot of applicants miss. So just making sure you're up to date on that. So the breakdown of the new CASPer. So the test length is approximately an hour and 40 minutes to 2 hours, depending on if you take all the breaks. So there's two parts to the test. The first part is the typing. It's typing based, meaning that you're presented a prompt, either a word-based scenario or a video-based scenario, and you are your responses are all typed. So you have 5 minutes for 3 questions, and you can break up how you want to answer those 3 questions with the timing as you please. And so you have 3 text-based scenarios, meaning that you have 3 passages that you read or 3 little snippets of words, and then you have 6 video-based scenarios where you watch the actual interaction between people or the scenario going on. Then you have a 5-minute break in that typing section, and then you have a 10-minute break, and then you're guided to the video part. So this is the new part. So if you wrote this last year, this is a new addition to the CASPer section. The videos aren't being submitted to schools, and we don't know what schools are getting these videos. Salma will talk a little bit more about this after. But the video part is basically you're given the same type of scenarios that you're given in the first section, but this time instead of typing your responses, you're given the opportunity to record yourself. So it's 1 minute video, still 3 questions, but 1 minute per video or 1 minute per question. So basically 18 videos because there's 6 different scenarios. It is a little bit confusing, but once you do the practice test and get used to the practice, it becomes a little bit more intuitive. So there's also some things in the pharmacy world, like Duet and Snapshot, done by the same company, which is Altus. So Snapshot is a short one-way video, and it's 3 interview-style questions where you record yourself and you submit that. People or CASPer in some schools recommend you do it within 14 days of taking your CASPer test. I haven't written it myself, so I can't give you guys any insight on that. But there's also Duet. So Duet is only applicable for US schools. So Snapshot is something common in the pharmacy world for Waterloo and some dental schools as well, I believe. But Duet you'll only see in the States. So if you're planning to the United States, then it might be beneficial to look into Duet. So Duet is a value alignment assessment that compares what you value in a program and what the program has to offer. So it's really important to read up on what the schools value. For example, some schools may be in rural communities, and like students that have that upbringing and value rural communities and want to give back to that city. So it's really important you read up on that schools and educate yourself on that.
All right, so you're all probably wondering, how is CASPer scored? So each scenario that you get, you are going to be scored out of 9 points. And it's important to know here that you're scored on the entire scenario as a whole. You're not scored on how well you do on each question, but rather the entire scenario as a whole. And for the new CASPer, scores are primarily going to be based off of your typed responses. So that's that first part of the test. And your scenarios are graded by different raters. So each scenario you get, and one particular person is going to be grading that, and they won't be grading any of your other scenarios. And it's also important to know that your score is based on how well you do compared to others. So you're going to be compared to everyone else that's in the application pool and all the other test takers, and they will report your score to your raw score to the schools that you're applying for. However, they will provide you with a score based on what quartile you landed in. And you might be wondering, what does it mean if I get into a 3rd or 4th quartile? And this chart that we have on the screen helps explain that and break it down a little bit. It's just based on your percentile. And one more thing to note is that your scores will be made available to you 4 weeks approximately after you write the test. So you might be wondering, well, what's the point of the video response section? So the video responses will still be scored, and it's part of their early adopter programs. So a few select schools have signed up to be part of this early adopter program, and they will be receiving these scores. We're unaware of which schools are part of the early adopter program, so it's still really important to practice this section and aim to do well. And admission programs can also request to receive your videos. So that's another reason why you should take this section seriously and aim to do well. The Altus Suite is still testing this section to ensure that biases don't affect an individual score, and they're waiting to ensure that it meets statistical thresholds before they're sending out the scores associated with this section.
Okay, so a large misconception of the CASPer is that it is a personality test, and people assume that like you can't prepare for it because it's just basically who you are. But just like any other exam, it is important to prepare for the CASPer, and it's important to practice like tests like scenarios, and you can find those through free resources such as BMO or SHIM. Or it's not free, but if once you do sign up for the exam, you do get a free practice exam essentially. And another great website is PrepMatch. Great tip to have is Deepan went over the 10 qualities. It's great to have an experience for each quality because they can ask you situational questions such as describe a time where you're in a conflict and how you circumvented that conflict. So to prepare for the CASPer, it's important to understand the test format and know which types of questions you're going to be asked, as there is typed scenarios and video-based scenarios. So it's important to understand the timings for each. And when practicing, it's also important to consider this time and do practice questions under a timed scenario, under time situations. That way you instill like the proper speed and the pacing you need throughout the test day. So another misconception is typing speed. People assume that you need a quick typing speed to answer all the questions in the time allotted. But for myself, I type about around 40 to 50 words per minute, and that was fine for me because they don't mark you based on like all the questions you complete. They mark you based on, say you only completed 2 of the 3 questions, they'll like allot those two questions to like the whole scenario. So you can still get a perfect score by only answering 2 of the questions. And also, it is important to ensure that within 6 hours of your exam, you do a systems requirement check to ensure your webcam's working, your microphone's working, and your speakers are working, because you are going to be recording your answers, typing your answers, and you'd also have to listen to videos. And it's also important to keep in mind that each cycle, you can only take the CASPer once. So if you don't get the score you want, you cannot repeat it for the same cycle. You'd have to wait for the following year. So that was it for our presentation. And if you guys have any quick questions that you guys want answered, feel free to ask them in the chat or unmute your mic.
If not, we're going to get into the breakout rooms. So basically, we're going to put up a prompt in the next slide, and you all are going to be divided into breakout rooms with 3 or 4 people. And there'll be a moderator in there to answer some questions, but we basically want you guys to feel comfortable unmuting, turning on your camera, and trying out the scenario for your own. And then we'll come back and regroup, and we'll give you some expert analysis on that one. Okay, so I'm going to open up the rooms. If you guys have any questions, sorry, one sec, Salma has something.
Yeah, we were going to get to some practice scenarios before the breakout rooms.
Sorry, yeah, forgot, my bad.
So if no one has any questions, or if you think of a question later, just feel free to toss it in the chat and we'll address the questions as they come up. But we will move on now to presenting you guys with some practice scenarios, and some of our CASPer experts are going to walk you through the mode of thinking and help you manage the questions and show you some example responses. So I'll turn it over to Izzy, who's going to be our first presenter.
Hi, so I'm Izzy. I'm in my 4th year of biochem at the U, and I just took my CASPer this summer in late August along with my MCAT. One was a lot worse than the other. I'll let you guess which one. So I'm just going to walk you through a practice situation that was something similar to what I got. I think it brings out a lot of good points. And I was someone who really liked to have like a set I guess kind of like an idea of how I was going to tackle each question. So to really set like, this is what I'm going to do first, this is what I'm going to do second, and then I'll walk you through that. So read the question first. So the question is, you and your cousin are driving to the grocery store. Your cousin goes to back into a spot and she nicks the car next to her, leaving a scratch. Your cousin explains to you that she is already working 3 jobs to afford her current car and that she would not be able to afford to repair the scratch on another. She also points out to you that the scratch is barely noticeable and that it'd be okay if she just changed spots and pretended like nothing happened. What do you do? So immediately reading this question, if you went over what the CASPer is assessing, right away I'm noticing that there's going to be some sort of empathy for my cousin. You know, she's working really hard and she just nicked this spot on this car, but also keeping in mind ethics, doing the right thing would be to come honest about what happened. Mind you, we're kind of looking at a parking spot, so we're not looking at like a major accident on the road. So it's definitely worth coming clean about, but definitely showing empathy towards my cousin. So I'll show you thank you. All right, so my thought process for any situation dilemma, and this is not any question that asks you how does this relate to your personal life or anything like that, more for situation dilemmas like this. My thought process is always acknowledge both sides. So the CASPer really wants to make sure that you're able to look at different points of views in any kind of conflict. You're going to make a decision like where you stand. And the really good part about not getting a lot of information and questions, in my opinion, is being able to use if-then statements, and you can really be creative with questions and make them your own. Like you get to make the circumstances that the situation lies on to set yourself up to answer it the way you want to answer it. And then if you have time, I like to add a supporting argument depending on where I'm at. So my answer goes, I'd first explain to my cousin how I understand her financial worries, but that it's crucial we try to come up with an alternative solution so that she's still able to take accountability for the scratch. So I'm acknowledging, my cousin and her financial worries. And then I'm also saying that it is super important that we uphold ethics and we are taking accountability. So I'm acknowledging both sides. And now I'm going to make my decision. If and using if then statements. So if she was willing to find the car owner and explain the situation, then I would help her prepare what to say, which includes offering a payment plan to help fix the scratch so that she can slowly pay back the repairs when she receives the funds. If she was not willing to do so, I'd explain to my cousin that accidents happen all the time, but honesty is incredibly important for growing as a person and learning how to properly fix these situations in case that it happens again. I'd finally ask her how she would feel if someone scratched her car that she worked super hard to pay for, and I'd wait for the car owner to explain the situation and see what other solutions we could come up with, my cousin's financial situation in mind. And then my supporting argument, I'd reassure both parties by making sure that my cousin knew she was doing the right thing and telling the owner of the car that the funds for the scratch will be paid in the timeline we had agreed upon. So this is kind of being able to work through different perspectives of different outcomes that would always make the most people happy. And this way too, this is 5 sentences, which is probably in my personal experience on average what I would type for dilemma questions. For personal experiences, I was more around 3. I found that to be feasible for the time. Other people might have different experiences, but if you guys have any questions about how I felt with time or anything like that, or how I got through to this answer, I didn't even ask for if anyone wanted to try it on their own, but that's okay. If anyone has any questions, I'll answer them.
Thank you, Izzy, for sharing. We'll now move on to scenario number 2, which Yara is going to present.
Yeah, so I haven't written the CASPer yet. I'm writing it next week. So I'm really taking advantage of this session myself and really took into consideration what Izzy said. But this next example or next scenario is chosen by another 4th quartile scorer who couldn't be with us today, unfortunately, but I'll be just presenting on their behalf. And the question goes like this. So you're chatting with your coworker, Ryan, and he confides in you that he's been going through a dilemma. His wife is about to have a baby soon, and the company boss just offered him an amazing job promotion. Although this new job position would help advance Ryan's career and provide his family with more financial security, the job would require him to be working on projects away from home more often. So this means that he would not be able to support his wife with the baby as much as he may have liked to. He considered taking paternity leave to be with his family, but he is worried that the opportunity will no longer be available in the future. He also heard from other employees that men who have requested a paternity leave usually never end up getting moved up in the company. So the question is, Ryan is asking for your advice. What do you think he should do? So before I go into the answer, I'm just going to give you guys a few minutes and you can type in the chat or unmute yourself, see if you would come up with any idea to write in your answers or any insight on the situation.
And just as you guys are doing that, I'm going to share a tip that really helps me out. So after you're presented with the scenario on the real CASPer, you are given 30 seconds of reflection time. And I used to take this time to write down some notes of some of the key sentences or statements or ideas that I want to make sure I'm referring to in my answer. So that is a really good tip to keep in mind.
So I'll give you guys kind of like a 30-second reflection time too.
Thanks, Yara.
Does anybody feel like they want to give it a shot? Honestly, no answer is the wrong answer.
I always say you'd rather get it wrong now than on your actual CASPer. So give it a try.
Any volunteers? Oh,
so Sophia says, I think he should talk to his wife first. She might be understanding of his situation and they can come up with a compromise. That's a great answer, in my opinion. I don't know, Izzy, what do you think our 4th quartile score?
I agree. I think so too.
So I actually had a question for this. It's now popping in my head. Could we like write that we acknowledge how unjust what he heard is? Like the fact that taking a paternity leave means that you can't get moved up in the company. Could we kind of like say that we empathize with him? We would say that this is unfair, or should we not talk about like the injustice?
So I think it's really good to touch on that point because it's a really important point in the statement. But instead of talking about how you think it's unfair, a better thing to say here would be to question that statement. So you would want to encourage Ryan to have a chat with this person who apparently had a bad experience and try and understand, was it really the paternity leave that allowed him not to be able to move up in the company, or was it another factor? And then if it was paternity leave, then you can address how that is some sort of discrimination and it's unfair that these individuals have to face these circumstances.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Does anyone else, other than Sophia, want to say something before I head on to the answer given by our fourth quartile scorer? Nope. Okay, so based on what our fourth quartile scorer says, and again, I'll read the question again, Ryan, asking for your advice. What do you think he should do? The answer that they gave us was, I would first tell Ryan to really reflect on what matters most to him and his priorities. I would also advise him to discuss his emotions and concerns with his wife, so exactly what Sophia said, so that he understands her outlook on the situation, and his decision will also be directly affecting her and their soon-to-be child. In addition, I would tell Ryan not to base his decision on something he has heard from the employees, so that's exactly what Selma said, as he cannot confirm the validity of the statement or whether or not it is simply a false assumption. This would lead me into encouraging Ryan to speak with his boss directly after speaking with his wife and inform him of his circumstances. I would suggest he consider requesting to take a brief leave shortly after his baby is born. By doing so, he could be with his wife and child after the delivery, but can also eventually get back to work and accept the position. This option allows him to support his family financially and emotionally while also advancing his own career. Again, he would need to discuss the situation with his boss to see what options may be possible. Lastly, I will reassure Ryan that I am always there to help him if he needs to talk, because things can get stressful with family and work, so it is nice to know someone is there to listen and advise. So that's the answer to our question. I think it's very well put. And thank you, Sophia, for participating. Some of your ideas were mentioned, and as well as Selma's. So now, after this one, is this answer a realistic length, given that you only have 5 minutes for 3 questions? Well, it depends on how fast you're typing. It depends on how the ideas flow in your head. If I go back to the response sheet, they kind of reiterated one idea here. So maybe if you were under that time crunch, you wouldn't say again, he would need to discuss the situation with his boss, because you already said that in the beginning, and that would probably save you some time. But you know, like Deepan said already, if you don't have enough time to complete all 3 questions and you do the first 2 and get a perfect score, then you could still get a perfect score on that scenario. And I don't know, does anyone else want to have any input on those questions?
I would agree with that comment. This is a long-winded answer, but you can use all the ideas that are part of this answer and you could say it in a much shorter way. This answer is just written out super beautiful for you guys, so you can get an idea of what are the concepts that you should be thinking about when you're creating your answer. But at the end of the day, you can take this answer right here and you can condense it a whole bunch. You just want to make sure that you're touching on those key ideas of talking to his boss and seeing if there's any options that he hasn't considered or didn't know about, talking with his wife because her interests are important in this situation as well. trying to seek the validity of that statement of the other coworker who had a poor experience with maternity leave, and then weighing the pros and cons so he can come to a decision at the end of the day. So those are just the key ideas, and this is an example of how you could put it together. And some people have 80 words per minute typing speed, so it's doable for some, but I know if it was me, I would say this in a much more condensed way.
Yeah, and grammar and spelling is not that important. They know that you're under a lot of pressure and time, so it doesn't really affect your score. Just as long as the thought is there, then they'll be able to score you. Any other questions before we move on to breakout rooms and doing it yourself, trying it out?
Yeah, those are all amazing points in the chat. Feel free to keep asking questions. We have a bunch of moderators here willing to answer. So this is the prompt that we have, and then I'm going to open up breakout rooms now. Sorry, I got a little bit ahead of myself earlier. I forgot. We had a few slides, but now I'm going to open them up. Just give me 1 second here. So there'll be a countdown, and then you'll be sent to a group. I recommend you do not click like the leave button because you'll be kicked out of the meeting totally. It might be a little bit hard for you to get back in. So just wait, I will bring you guys back in. And there'll be moderators in the room with you to help you out, okay? So I will open them up and I will post this scenario in your in the announcements.
Okay, I think everyone's in their rooms now.
Okay, I still am waiting to, it won't let me post the announcement yet. Okay, so you guys can head over to your rooms when you guys are given that opportunity.
Okay, see
so
you guys in like about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Okay,
can
sounds
message
good.
each other.
Yep.
Mm.
Sorry, just give me a sec. I'm on my iPad today instead of my computer because I figured it'd be less confusing with the headphones and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to figure. I know I just opened the button for it like earlier.
I can assign you to one of your room if you want.
Yeah, that might be easier. Yara told me I was in room.
Actually, I can't do that right now. Just because I already opened the rooms, so I can't assign you. Are you not able to like join room?
I just can't see the rooms, which is weird. I saw them earlier
when you first joined.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What I can do is I can go to your room and just remain in the main chat just in case anyone comes back and has any questions. Okay.
Sure. Sounds good.
It's weird. No one's in room 9.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I'll try to go to room 12 then.
Okay.
Hello, hello. Is everyone doing good? Is everyone still talking? Oh yeah, people are still talking because I can see the chat. Are you getting all those notifications too?
No.
Like my phone's blowing up. Is my camera on?
Oh, it went to my the other chat and went to the phone.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm getting a bunch of them. I think it's good though. A lot of people are talking. Thanks.
That's good. I know. I was a little bit nervous because not a lot of people were saying much in the beginning. A lot of people were still coming and going too.
Yeah, but
Guess that's
this
funny.
is crazy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna see group 9 though real quick, see if they have any questions.
Sure.
Yeah, there's no one in group 9. Whatever.
That's so weird that no one went to group 9.
I think I signed them, but maybe some people don't want to participate in the group, so they left the meeting.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, it's been 7 minutes. I thought it was only gonna be 5 minutes, but I see a lot of conversation, so
That's really
I'm gonna
good.
join another one. Okay. All right, so I think bring everyone back. Are the participants increasing? Yes. That was a hard show. All good?
Is everyone back in the meeting now?
Yeah. So I got Harvey. I'm just waiting on Amar.
Am I back in the main room?
Yep.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm back.
having a technical issue. I can't really hear anything.
Hello? Can you hear me, Harjo?
Yeah. We can hear you. Yeah. Okay, guys. So I hope that was enjoyable experience. Okay, so Salma.
Yes, let me just take control.
Hello?
We can hear you,
You guys
Harjo.
hear
You
me?
good?
All right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take control here.
Not yet, Harjo.
It's like,
Salma's
yeah,
gonna walk through
Salma's.
this one.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone, I hope you all had good discussions with your groups and your moderators. Did anyone want to share any of the ideas that you guys were talking about? Feel free to just type it in the chat or turn on your mic. We're eager to hear what you guys were thinking.
And moderators too, if you think that what you spoke about in your group is a nice conversation, feel free to tell us what happened in your small group. I mean, in my group, one thing we were talking about was confidentiality and how we take an oath not to break confidentiality. And my group didn't think that this was a case where we should break a confidentiality. But I personally read an article that you should break confidentiality only if there's danger to someone and to others. So that's the answer to the second question of our group. And for the first question, we don't think that Cheryl should message her friend. She's just a shadower, but we do empathize with everyone, like Cheryl feeling this responsibility to tell her friend, the friend receiving the news, and it might be heartbreaking, but we also have to respect the grandfather's decision. Maybe they don't want the grandchild to know about the cancer, and we have to respect their privacy. And we also have to respect that this news to them is not easy as well. So we think that Cheryl should tell the oncologist to tell the friend and not Cheryl herself. So that's what we discussed.
A great point about her grandfather not wanting her to know. So in that scenario, you would want to say that you want to get more information, and maybe you want to talk to the grandfather and see, hey, like, does so and so know, or you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, similar to that in my group, a lot of people were talking about how, well, they were relating it to themselves. And like, for example, your parents, when they're sick, they don't want to stress you out and let you know, like, hey, I'm not feeling too good today. So maybe the grandfather has a similar approach to that, not wanting to stress out his family or his grandkids. So I think it's really important to look at who it affects. It could affect their relationship as well if she knows prematurely. So my group had some great ideas there.
Awesome.
We have a really good question in the chat. What happens if the grandfather tells Cheryl to tell the friend because he knows Cheryl?
Whoa, okay.
So that
that's a
would
tough
probably
one.
be an if-then statement.
Yeah.
Just like Izzy was saying. Then, of course, you would respect the patient's wishes, I think, right?
I think in that case, another thing to consider is maybe Cheryl should talk to the oncologist, because she is just a shadower. She's still learning, and she can seek their help in trying to figure out what she should do. So another great thing CASPer looks for is your ability to recognize where your knowledge ends. So when it's appropriate, say that you're going to seek other resources or talk to professionals about whatever topic the question is about, and show that you're not afraid to ask for help and include other people's perspectives when you're trying to make these like big decisions.
And
All
then-
right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
In this situation, to me, if the grandfather did tell Cheryl to tell her friend, because he knows Cheryl, I would again set that up as an if-then statement and be like, if this happens, then I would probably seek help from the oncologist themselves and the grandfather in delivering that news to Cheryl, to be there as a best friend, but also to receive the more information that Salma was saying, because that's where your knowledge ends. Of course, the oncologist would have a lot more information in the scientific realm about that.
Yeah, and then probably you don't want the oncologist to feel like Cheryl's overstepping or doing the oncologist's job. So as long as Cheryl talks to the oncologist and then respects the grandfather's wishes, then I think it should be good.
Okay, great. So there's a lot of different ideas that are floating around, and the important thing to remember here is that there's no right or wrong answers in CASPer. So in the following slides, I'm going to show you some of the example responses that you guys can use to help you think about how you want to approach this question. But this doesn't say that the answer I have on the slide is the correct answer. It's just an option of what a correct answer looks like. So all the other ideas are all valid, and you could feel free to use it. And the ideas that you have, feel confident in them, and just make sure that you present them well on test day. So how would our experts respond? In terms of the first question, should Cheryl message her friend? I've shown what an adequate answer would be and what an expert answer would be. So we'll go through each and talk about the strengths of each. In the adequate answer, it reads, Cheryl shouldn't message her friend because she shouldn't be the one to break this news to her friend. It should come from a doctor who is more knowledgeable about the situation and can address any of her concerns. So this answer is adequate because it directly answers the question and it provides a supporting reason for the statement that you're making. So if you feel like you're running out of time, This is a great answer to be putting down just so you can answer the question directly and quickly provide a reason. It's just one sentence, and it would show the raters your thought process and can help them get a better understanding of what kind of ideas you have for this scenario. An expert answer would read like this. In this scenario, Cheryl is faced with conflicting positions of being there for her friend and duties of confidentiality. Before taking any action, Cheryl should first confirm if the patient is in fact her friend's grandfather, as if she is wrong, she can cause her friend undue worry. Despite this, I believe Cheryl shouldn't message her friend because even as a volunteer, she must uphold her responsibilities of confidentiality. If the patient is in fact her friend's grandfather, Cheryl can instead seek ways to support her friend when they do find out by the appropriate people, such as their granddad's doctors or their parents. So in this answer, I've stated the problem, which is Cheryl being conflicted by these two positions of duties to her friend and duties to confidentiality. And I've shown that I'm aiming to gain more information about the scenario so I can make a better, more informed decision. So that's by trying to understand, is this actually her grandfather or is it someone I think is her grandfather? And I've stated my responsibilities and my decision. And I've also provided alternative solutions. So if Cheryl can't message her friend and go this approach, what can she do? So this would be a really solid answer because you're showing the raters that you acknowledge the problem, you understand the different perspectives, you know what your responsibility is, you make a decision, and you justify that decision. Does anyone have any questions? And if so, I can move on.
There's one in the chat if you want to address that.
Can you read it out? I can't see the chat.
Sure. Yeah. He said for the first question, I understand that no is a better answer, but do you have to explicitly say no, or can you be neutral and include an if-then statement and maybe come to the conclusion that no is in fact a better answer?
So this is a great question. I would say that because you may be running out of time and CASPer will not wait for you, the answers will just close right on you. I think it's best to state your position right in the beginning because CASPer raters want to see that you are able to take a decision when there is a dilemma. When you're just staying neutral and not really sure, it makes them feel like you are kind of wishy-washy and you don't know what you would do. They want to see that you're able to take a decision and you're able to support it. Like I said, there's no right or wrong answer. In this case, it's pretty clear what most people would say, but in other scenarios, you can go either way. They just want to see that you're able to take a decision and you're able to justify it using ethical principles and your morals and demonstrate that. So just because you might run out of time and you might not get to the end where you state your final decision, you should probably state that in the beginning. However, you can consider afterwards, like you could say, I wouldn't message Cheryl's friend. However, if blah, 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 then I actually might message her friend. However, most likely blah, 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 blah would happen. And in this case, I wouldn't message her friend because blah, blah, blah. So I hope that answers your question. All right, so we'll move on to question 2. So question number 2 was, when is it okay to breach confidentiality in a professional setting? An adequate answer, and please remember, adequate answers are okay if you're running out of time and you just get a chance to put one sentence down. You want to make sure that you put a sentence that is meaningful, and this is an example of that. So an adequate answer would be, you can breach confidentiality in situations where you think a piece of information can help protect an individual from being a danger to themselves or others. So in this answer, you directly answer the question and you provide a valid reason for the statement that you're making. An expert answer would read as the following. I acknowledge confidentiality is an important principle used to build trust. There are a few cases when confidentiality should be broken, but one must always reflect before doing so as such a decision has serious implications. I think confidentiality should be broken when there is reason to believe an individual is in danger of harming themselves or others. In such cases, the appropriate professionals should be notified so the danger can be addressed. I think this is justified because the decision is taken while considering the best interest of the patient. So in this answer, you're acknowledging the weight of the decision and why confidentiality is important. And you're also demonstrating that it's not just something that you take lightly. You will consider when is an appropriate case to break confidentiality. You stated your reasons and your decision, and we also supported our argument. So this would be a really good answer in the eyes of CASPer raters. Any questions for this one? This one's a little bit more clear. At least in my breakout group, we kind of came to this consensus for this question. All right, if you have any questions, put them in the chat, but for now I'll move on. So please remember, there are 3 follow-up questions to each scenario. And an example of what the third follow-up question would be to this scenario would be, why is confidentiality important? Now, let's say you have like 20 seconds left and you're running out of time. How can you still address that question, but in the time that you have left? So an important thing to remember is that each scenario is graded as a whole. So you're not graded based on each answer to each question, you're graded as a whole. So a great way to go about this would be to try and address your answer for question 3 in your other first 2 answers. So I demonstrated this for using my answer for question 2. I showed here that confidentiality is an important principle used to build trust. So I showed the CASPer rater that I understand why confidentiality is important, and I put that in my second answer. So just in case I never got a chance to answer question number 3, I still address that point, and they can understand that I know what I'm talking about. All right. Any other questions?
Sorry, I also just wanted to add that you get to see all 3 questions at the same time. I know I tried to skim over all 3 of them as quickly as I could at the beginning, so I could kind of keep that in mind what Selma was saying about touching on those points.
All right, so we'll finish off the session. We have 2 more scenarios to present to you guys, and we have some 4th quartile students that are going to walk you through how they would answer those questions. So I'll turn it over to Harjo.
Hi guys, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? Okay, sorry, I was having some technical issues before, but so hi guys, my name is Harjo Jahal. I'm in my 4th year of biology at the University of Windsor, and I wrote my CASPer back in September, and yes, I did score in the 4th quartile. So I'm just going to be going over a scenario of that I found very helpful when practicing. And just off, like initially when you see this, it looks pretty big and it can be intimidating, but I wanted to show this because it's important to remember that not all scenarios are going to be the same length. You might have some that are really short, you might have some that are really long. So I'm just showing this more of a complex scenario, so you're not like alarmed if you see this when you're practicing or even during your CASPer. So I'm just going to read it quickly, and there's some highlighted like important points in the scenario, so I'll quickly go over those at the end after reading. So the scenario starts with, you are a member of a study group and you observe 2 members of your group, John and Steve, having a heated conversation. John looks stressed. Oh,
Sorry, Harjo, I don't want to cut you out. Okay, there you
go. Okay, so John looks stressed and is upset that the group project is not close to being complete, despite being due at the end of the week. When Steve asked John what is stressing him out, he says he's being overwhelmed by the amount of work which is redistributed to the group members when Marshall, another group member, had to leave the group due to a medical condition. While Marshall's medical condition is severe and required hospitalization, John is upset that Marshall knew how important this project is to everyone's grades and thinks it's unfair for the other members of the group to have to take on Marshall's work that he was supposed to complete. To make matters worse, Steve discovers a recently posted picture on Marshall's Facebook showing him at a pool party, which further angers John. With the current arrangement, the work submitted by the group would award Marshall the same grade as the others, despite him not completing the same amount of work. John suggests Marshall has been dishonest about his medical condition to go out and get away from the work, basically. And Steve reminds John that this picture could have been taken a while back. So I'm going to be going over one potential question that could be associated with this scenario, because this is a really complex scenario, and the question that is given is also very complex. So the question is, or it's not, but the statement is, Steve turns to you and asks, what would you do in the situation? Go to the next slide. So actually, I'll go back, sorry. I'm gonna just quickly touch on these like important points. So here we have some things highlighted, like John and Steve are having a heated conversation. So that's one thing that stands out, is that there's a lot of tension within the group and the tension between the group members. So that's one thing to take into account when you're going over how you're going to approach the situation. It also states that John is pretty stressed out and he's upset. So it's important to like think about how everyone in the group is being affected, not just one individual. Again, you're saying he's overwhelmed by the work, which could be affecting him. So that's just something, so it could be affecting him either mentally or in any other way, which is something you want to take into consideration. And then the main idea within this is the fact that Marshall, another group member, has left the group due to a medical condition that he had. So that's one thing we want to keep in mind. There's a supposed reason behind his absence. So this is the main idea behind the passage itself. And so I'll just go to the next slide. So here's my answer that I wrote out. I also have some highlighted important points and words that I'll go over at the end. So again, the scenario was, Steve turns to you and asks, what would you do in his situation? So this is what I came up with. In this case, I'm faced with an ethical and moral dilemma affecting all current and former members of the study group. I would first want to gather more information on the situation rather than working with any assumptions. I'll speak to Steve and John privately in a non-judgmental manner to better understand their sides of the story and validate their feelings and opinions. I will then speak with Marshall in private in a professional and non-confrontational manner. I will let him know that I'm sorry for his situation and that I'm happy to help if he needs anything. I would then raise the group's concerns regarding if this photo is new. If the photo is old and Marshall cannot actually return to the group, there is no reason to commence further in this conversation, and you should obviously support Marshall and his issues he's having. If the photo is new, I will ask Marshall if they're okay and ready to rejoin the group. If they actually have been dishonest about their state and refuse to complete their work, this issue can then be brought up to a professor of the course or any other higher up in the scenario. And aside from this, the other group members can also speak with the professor to seek an extension on their work, which may help alleviate some of the stress and tension that the individuals are facing. So like we said earlier, this does seem like a pretty long answer. And again, the main point of the CASPer is to just touch on the main important points. Does it really matter as much how you write it exactly, as long as you're showing that you understand the scenario? And going forward, yeah, Deepan, if you have something to say.
Yeah, if would it be okay to like give him a chance to like report himself? Let's say he is in the wrong.
Yeah, that's one thing you can do. So here I said, if he has been dishonest about his state and he just said this to get out of the work, then yeah, you can even give them the opportunity to report themselves to the professor. And if they don't want to do that, then you can go forward and take action by giving them, I guess, a chance to report themselves. So it can allow for like self-growth for the individual and a learning lesson for them. So they can take this moment and apply it to their future life and basically just become better as a person. So if anyone has any questions, you can put in the chat or raise your hand and use your mic. I'm just going to quickly go over like these bolded points that I have in my answer. So I started off with talking about how this is an ethical and moral dilemma. I think this is something I really like to do in my answers because it just shows the people who's grading the CASPer that I understand like which of the competencies are being examined in this scenario, and that I understand that I have to take this into account when approaching how I'm gonna, approaching how I will react in the scenario. So that's one thing majority of the questions, that's something I'll start off with, is basically outline what competencies are being affected here and what ways I should go about reacting to this. Another very important thing that was brought up earlier and I can show in this scenario is that I wanted to gather more information on the situation rather than working with assumptions. So basically in any type of scenario, you never really, whether it's professional or in your own life, you never really want to just assume something to be the truth and act on that, as obviously you could be wrong. The assumption could be wrong and you don't want to take action against something that you don't know is true. If we go back to the question, we remember they said that Steve brought up to John that you don't know if this is a old picture or a new picture. So that's one thing I wanted to take into account and really just make sure I knew 100% whether this was old or new. And that's something I said that we were going to speak to Marshall about. So in general, you just never really want to work on assumptions. You always want to gather more information in really any setting, professional or just in your life. Also, when I decide to speak with the individuals, Steve and John, even Marshall as well, it was more in a private manner and without bringing any judgment towards them or confronting Marshall. As obviously in a professional setting, this really just shows that you understand how you should be acting in a professional setting and you understand the nuances of the situation. You don't really want to start another problem with an individual that there's already tension with, as it can create a way larger problem than you had in the beginning. So that's one thing to keep in mind whenever you're approaching people, whether it's professionally, if you're approaching someone to give them help, it's always best to do it in a private area or in an area that they feel comfortable in. And then since we know that Marshall supposedly had a medical condition, you want to show empathy for them, right? You want to let them know that this is someone you've worked with in the past, and you want to let them know that you're sorry for the situation and you'd be happy to help if there is anything that you can do. So this just shows that you really empathize with Marshall and you empathize with the individual that is supposedly having a medical condition here. The last, I guess, important things to keep in mind with this type of scenario is that you want to go ahead. There's a lot of different ways a scenario like this could play out. So that's one thing the CASPer graders are looking at is, can you understand that regardless of what happens, there's different ways that a scenario could go. There's different outcomes, and you should be able to identify these and show that you understand this. This is a very complex situation, and there's a lot of nuances with this. And by showing you can understand that there isn't just one set outcome, it really shows that you can think critically, and this is something that would be great to show on your own CASPer. I guess overall, the main thing with this type of situation is remembering that although they believe that Marshall has, although they have a feeling that Marshall has been lying about his medical condition, you can't assume that this is true, and you always want to gather information and speak with that person individually before like going forward with the conversation and going forward with how you're going to react. So if you have any other questions about the scenario or my answer in general, you can put in the chat or I guess open up your mic and ask, and I'd be happy to help, or any of the moderators would be.
Awesome. So again, leave them in the chat, and then Emmanuel, are you here?
All right. Can I say I just want to bring up one last thing about this scenario.
Sure.
I think just one thing to keep in mind, because obviously if you're writing the CASPer, you have some type of goal of working in some type of professional field, whether it's dentistry, medical, pharmacy, right? So if you can see in my answer, I also explained how I'm going to speak to both Steve and John and really understand and validate their own feelings, because if you're working in a professional field or a medical field, healthcare field, anything like that of that sort, obviously your number one priority is going to be the health and well-being of the people around you, whether it's your patients, your friends, family, anything like that of that sort, right? So the well-being of everyone around you should be a top priority for you if you're working in these types of fields. So that's one thing you can also show the CASPer graders, that you understand this, and they'll give a better understanding to the reasoning for why you're approaching your goals, why you want to work in healthcare in general. So that's one thing to keep in mind with these type of answers.
Sorry, one more thing before Emmanuel goes in. For the video responses, if this was a video answer, sometimes it's hard to fill that 1 minute if you're getting stuck, having some block when you're talking. I think it's important to also tie this back to the profession that you're applying to. Like Harjo said, for this situation, applying some key aspects, some of the bolder things, how you would be happy to help, show empathy. It's really important for medicine, dental, pharmacy, all the healthcare professions. So I think if you do have some extra time, like 20 seconds, 15 seconds, tie it back into what you're doing and why you think it's important. It really shows that you can take that next step and think professionally as well.
Okay, hi everybody. My name's Emmanuel. So I'm in my 4th year of biomedical sciences at the University of Windsor. And yeah, I wrote my CASPer back at the end of August. And yeah, I was able to do pretty well. So hopefully I can help you guys out a bit. So I'm just gonna be talking about one of the practice scenarios I did while I was preparing for my CASPer. And actually, before I get into that, I kind of want to talk about a different style of CASPer question. So we've been looking mainly at scenario-based questions. There's also prompt-based questions, which will ask you like about a personal experience, or say a time where you experienced some sort of conflict or obstacle or something. And those questions, obviously, they're very different from the scenario-based questions, but they can also be quite challenging. And just a few tips to prepare for those questions. It's good to, before you get into even practicing your CASPer, preparing for it, think about your life experiences. So compile a list about things that you've done that you can kind of relate to stuff that you're going to encounter in the CASPer. So for instance, you can talk about a time where you've confronted an authority figure, a time where someone treated you unfairly, where you're a bystander, or where you have to make a sacrifice. So kind of think about these situations and even like write them out and make a list about them. And that'll make your CASPer experience a lot easier because you always have something to fall back into. Even for the scenario-based questions, it's not bad to, make a link to your own experience and use that to explain your decision. So just a quick little tip before I get into my scenario. So here's a scenario. You're the coach of a women's softball team. You recently told your players that they could vote for a captain from among their peers. 2 girls are nominated. The first candidate is popular with her teammates. However, you have noticed that she tends to belittle new and less experienced players. She is also known as a bit of an irresponsible partier, and you're concerned about the negative influence she may have on the team as a leader. The other candidate is a quieter, however, seems more organized and is kind and welcoming to new team members. You count the ballots, realize the first candidate has won. So right when I read that last sentence, I'm automatically thinking to myself, this is going to be something to do with an ethical dilemma. It's going to involve conflict resolution. So when you think about that, you can kind of start to get the gears turning as to how you want to approach these types of questions. So the first question is, as a coach, you have the power to veto the team vote. Would you exercise that authority in this scenario? Why or why not? The second is, if you did overturn the team's decision, what would you say to the first candidate if she came to your office demanding explanation? And the third is, how would you describe your leadership style? So yeah, go to the next slide, please. Okay, so here is my answer to the first question. As coach in this scenario, I'm facing an issue concerning the well-being and future of my team. If I veto the vote, it is likely to upset the elected candidate and many members of the team. If I do not veto the vote, a toxic and unwelcome environment may be nurtured within the team. Before deciding, I want to learn more about the candidate that was elected. I don't want to base my opinion off of rumors or a few negative experiences. I will personally talk to the elected candidate to learn more about her personality and her goals as a leader. If I judge that she will be a good captain, then I will not veto. However, if this conversation confirms my concern, then I will kindly and clearly explain my expectations to the candidate and give her a chance. If she ends up being a bad leader, I will veto the vote. I will do this because I value the well-being and happiness of all the members of my team. So before I dive deeper into this response, I kind of want to ask the audience, what are some good things and some bad things about this answer? You guys can just drop in the chat, or you can unmute your mic and just say what you think about this answer.
I like the part when you said that you would still give her a chance. Oh, yep. Christina agrees.
Yeah, right. So giving her a chance, that just shows, and that's just to show empathy, right? Which is obviously one of the things that the CASPer is evaluating. So you definitely want to include that. Yep. I like that you include if then statements in your answer. Yep. And that's like, obviously, that's like kind of like a golden rule for CASPer. If you're not sure what to do, add an if then statement and you'll probably do pretty well. Are there any bad things you guys can pick out from this answer? Getting more information. Yep. Good. Something to improve on this answer, can you find?
Maybe
Okay.
you could talk about the other member that you haven't talked about, the other candidate.
Yeah, I was actually about to get into that. So for good things for this answer, as the things you guys mentioned, so yeah, giving her a chance, if then statements, getting more information. And one thing that I really like about this answer that I think should be applied to almost every CASPer scenario is that statement at the end. I will do this because I value the well-being and happiness of all the members of my team. So adding a statement at the end of your answer that kind of speaks to like your professionalism or your empathy or any of the qualities that the CASPer is evaluating is kind of like an easy way to score extra points because it shows the raters that you are aware and that you possess that quality. So that's something that I think everyone should practice in their answers. At the end, just add a statement that kind of speaks to your personal qualities and to what they're looking for. Something that I think could be improved on this answer, as Yara mentioned, I could talk more about the other candidate, and that could involve kind of elaborating more on what I would do after I veto the vote. So I could talk about how I would deal with both candidates, how I would deal with the one that got the position taken away from her and the one that got the new position. So yeah, that's the first question. The second answer is when the candidate, if you did it for a team's edition, what would you say to the first candidate if she came to your office to make an explanation? So when the candidate approaches me, I will first let her vent out her frustration and share to her that I understand why she is frustrated. I will then explain to her that as coach, I have a duty to ensure not only that the team is good, but that every member feels comfortable, safe, and included. I will use this encounter as a teaching opportunity to give feedback and guidance, such as to contribute to her development. So, another good thing about this answer, active listening and trying to gather more information. So, this is also a good thing that you can apply to almost all your answers. When you're faced with an issue of conflict resolution, it's always good to kind of refrain and listen first. So that first sentence saying that I would let her vent out her frustration shows that I am open-minded and that I'm ready to consider her point of view and hear what she has to say. And if you guys know this too, this answer and the one after it too, they're a bit shorter, and that's because this is like a real practice question that I actually did. So as we've said multiple times throughout the meeting, they rate each scenario as a whole. So I touched what I do a lot is that I would touch on many things as possible in my first question, and then in the last two kind of be more direct, and that allows you to kind of cover everything, but at the same time display those qualities that they're really looking for. Yeah, Deepan, you got a question?
Yeah, for the second question, do you think it's important to mention that when making decisions in your actual professional life, you would first consult the people so that they're not like blindsided? Because it seems like in the prompt, you're saying that like you just made the decision without consulting her.
Right. Yeah. So that's something that I could have definitely improved on the first question. Maybe I could bring other people into the decision making, kind of maybe ask other coaches or other teachers what types of things they think, and even kind of get the candidate involved more. Yeah, that's definitely a good point. Zara, you got something to say?
Yeah, I had a question. Like, would you be able to say, since you're the coach, maybe kind of making the rules, that you would give them, if ever the person was upset that you vetoed the kind of decision, could you kind of open up the idea of like a dual kind of coaching where they work together? If ever that girl wanted to prove that she is suitable as a coach.
Yeah, and then just like that, that's just another approach to answering the question. So, I mean, yeah, because that shows that again, one of the qualities that CASPer is looking after, collaboration, and by doing that, you also find a compromise. It seems like these two candidates would be able to balance each other out pretty well. So I think that's a viable approach. Yeah. Again, with these questions, there's not really like a wrong answer. What matters is your approach and kind of the qualities that you display in your approach. So that's the most important thing. So as I said, by encouraging a collaborative style of leadership, you'd allow the team to prosper with both candidates being able to kind of support each other. And that kind of brings me nicely into my third question. How would you describe your leadership style? I enjoy a collaborative leadership style. That is, when I lead, I like to incorporate the perspectives and ideas of as many people as possible. I do this because I recognize the value of diversity in background and thought when problem solving, seeking feedback, and helping others. And here, again, I try to incorporate one of those qualities that CASPer is evaluating, so collaboration and communication. And yeah, are there any questions, any comments on my answers?
I had a question about the last one.
Right.
Is this a place where you can add in like your own experience? Like, for example, as Yara touched upon, like, how's your leadership style? I'm very collaborative, as I've shown in my like co-presidency, for example. Or do we not want to add those in because there are separate questions that ask about like certain scenarios that you've been in?
No, honestly, that'd be when I was answering this question, I actually want to do that, but I ran out of time. But like, yeah, that'd be like honestly the perfect route to go. You can add in something about there, okay, I was a co-president on this club and I showed leadership in that way. And then yeah, talking about that is actually a great way to tackle this question. But yeah, again, we're limited by time and your typing speed, but You do what you can.
Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions?
Thanks, Emmanuel. That was great. I think it's really important to acknowledge how every single one of our fourth quartile people had like different approaches to questions. As you can see, it wasn't like a cookie cutter type approach. Everyone addressed different things, like to prioritize different things, and they all did well. So I'm sure you can find your own approach. Take some things that you like from Emmanuel's, Isabel's, Harjot's, Yara's, and Rita's presentation, and make it your own. And I think that's how we all succeeded in this. Now, if you do have any questions, put them in the chat. You also have all of our UN emails and the invite that I sent you, but also all of our Instagrams are at the beginning of this PowerPoint, so you can always reach out to us via email or Instagram. But we hope you guys enjoyed the event. If anyone has anything else to say, any of the co-presidents or moderators, feel free.
I have one thing I kind of wanted to share. I began sharing it with my team and the little group, and then I got cut off, and I should have seen that coming. But one thing that I kind of wanted to share with you all is that if you're looking to kind of gain exposure to like thinking ethically and like these scenarios, try, if you are still early on in your undergraduate years, take the healthcare ethics course or ethics in professions with Dr. Muldoon. She is an amazing prof that we wished we had with us today, but due to time, we kind of cut it short. But she's an amazing prof that teaches ethics. And I took her class, and honestly, it was the best class ever, because if we're looking into going into these professional schools, we have to kind of train our minds to think ethically, because we've been students our whole life, but when you're actually put into the real world, there are so many scenarios that happen in front of you. And when I took that class, I'm like, okay, I don't know how to act. So I think just a lot of people ask, like, how do you prepare for the CASPer? Yes, you can do all these practice questions maybe and look at videos of people talking and probably attend these sessions, but actually like taking a course on ethics truly opens up your mind to different kind of scenarios and how to tackle them. So I think that was just my food for thought.
And just to piggyback on what Zahra was saying, another great thing to do in your preparation is to look into the news, see what are the hot topics in healthcare right now and relating to your field, because you might get a question that is related to that. You might get a question about the recent legalization of marijuana. What is your opinion on drugs? What is your opinion on people that don't believe in vaccines? All those controversial topics, you should be prepared and have some sort of background knowledge. You don't need to be an expert, but just have some sort of idea of what the conversation is all about, so you can take a stance and support it in your answers.
And especially now, there's a lot about EDI, which is equity, diversity, inclusion. So that's something that is like on every platform. So also familiarize yourself with that and how you would kind of tackle these scenarios, because those are found on the CASPer a lot too.
Yeah, so on what Zara mentioned about the ethics, I know like some of you guys haven't took the class and you guys are planning to write it. I'm attaching a link in the chat, and this is like a great website that has most of the ethics that bridge across healthcare. And a lot of people use this in their preparation. There's a lot of different topics, so if you can't get through them all, it's fine. But like there's a few that are really essential and that will like really help you like get different perspectives on ethics and like how you can circumvent certain situations and do it in an ethical manner that like maintains your professionalism.
Awesome. So if you guys have nothing further, no other questions or anything like that, that is the event. We hope you guys enjoyed. We hope you guys learned something. I know we all did. I learned different people's perspectives, even though I already wrote CASPer. So I felt like it was really valuable. Feel free to share this with your friends. We'll post the YouTube link and we'll link it on some of our stories so you guys can find it if you want to rewatch. But thank you guys for coming out. We hope you guys enjoyed and have a good night.
Thanks
Thank you
for
for coming,
having
everyone.
me.
Thank
And
you, Izzy.
also, if you guys want AirPods, feel free to sign up for a fundraiser. It's the QR code just on the right. It's for a good cause, so you're supporting a good cause, and you get a chance to win AirPods. So it's win-win
Doesn't
for
hurt.
everyone.
Those are
Just
true.
like that. There's also other prizes such as haircuts, restaurant gift cards. So like multiple chances to win. So feel free to enter.
Harjo's a winner. He's already won.
Yep.
You can speak to it.
Thank you for coming out, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Izzy. Thanks to all the fourth quartile scorers. I learned a lot today. Thank you so much.